Honestly, if it was Kamala Harris behaving this way, they'd call her hormonal and hysterical, right? Look.
Well, you'd have to get elected to be.
But, well, yes, and if she had been elected and if Hillary Clinton had been elected, if any woman had been elected and been acting this way, they'd say it was menopause.
She would have never stood up to China, so I
Well,
don't think this is a mood issue, right?
No, it's not a mood issue because his craziness and the way that he acts, and this is not in a vacuum, because it's not just the tariffs. It's the first thing he did was attack Panama, Greenland, Denmark, Canada, allies, abandon Ukraine, cozy up to Russia.
In today's video, Ana Navarro absolutely destroys Scott Jennings in a heated debate about Trump's tariffs on Newsnight with Abby Phillip. This debate cuts to the heart of what's happening right now, a humanitarian catastrophe, thousands of civilians killed, journalists targeted, and famine conditions being deliberately created. So let's dive in and watch how Ana Navarro shuts down Scott Jennings on Newsnight with Abby Phillip.
One of the things that's happened is that the United States has lost, like, is it $1 trillion or $11 trillion since this all began? Maybe regained a little bit of it, but has lost all of that, and not a single trade deal has been struck.
No, and the reason why they haven't been struck is because lowering the headline tariff number is the easy bit. The 90 days is now going to be dealing really with the non-tariff barriers, the rules on procurement, who can own what this and that and the other. It's difficult stuff. It's very, very difficult. But I have a question, and I'd like to address it to my dear and good friend, Mr. Jennings. This is it. Today, the president gave a 90-day moratorium. Why did he not last week, when he did his show and tell with his list, say then, this is going to be the tariffs in 90 days. Now send your best people to Washington to negotiate with me over the next 90 days. Instead, he took us over the cliff and has now pulled us back up again, and he's left chaos in his wake.
It is a great question,
I
Scott.
think the answer that you would get from the administration is doing it this way gave him maximum leverage. It showed people that he was serious, and it showed people that this isn't for show, that if you don't deal with us, we are willing to act here. But I think the answer is leverage, simply leverage. And now he's going to be able to deal with all these other countries and continue to isolate the bad actor, which is China.
People that he's serious. I think he's shown people that he's crazy. He's mercurial. Honestly, if it was Kamala Harris behaving this way, they'd call her hormonal and hysterical, right? Look.
Well, you'd have to get elected to be.
But, well, yes, and if she had been elected and if Hillary Clinton had been elected, if any woman had been elected and been acting this way, they'd say it was menopause.
She would have never stood up to China, so I don't think this is a mood issue, right?
No, it's not a mood issue because his craziness and the way that he acts, and this is not in a vacuum, because it's not just the tariffs. It's the first thing he did was attack Panama, Greenland, Denmark, Canada, allies, abandon Ukraine, cozy up to Russia. It's been one thing to after another. But this is also very, very similar to what Doge has been doing, where they go in with a sledgehammer when everybody talks about needing a scalpel. With these tariffs, again, went in with a sledgehammer, caused fear, destruction, distrust, when it could have been done with a scalpel in a strategic way. That's just not the way he operates.
Even the administration was not on the same page. I mean, it was the narrative around these tariffs has changed so many times. First, it was, oh, it's punitive because of Mexico and Canada and fentanyl, which, by the way, a majority of the fentanyl crossing the border is from American citizens. Then it was, you know, we're going to level the playing field, and this is how we're going to pay for tax cuts. It does not show that he was serious. It shows that he was grossly unserious. And so, yet again, on the heels of a signal group chat and now tariffs, we look like a national embarrassment.
Well, let me just play one.
You know what Ana Navarro really nailed here? The whole leverage excuse doesn't hold up when you look at the actual results. Trump's tariff stunt didn't force better deals. It tanked U.S. credibility and cost Americans big time. According to the Federal Reserve and multiple economic studies, those tariffs ended up functioning as a massive hidden tax on American consumers and businesses. Companies paid higher import costs, and they passed that straight down to working families. And let's be real, Scott Jennings saying this shows strength is spin. Strength isn't burning bridges with allies like Canada and the EU, then scrambling later because your own farmers are going bankrupt from retaliatory tariffs. Remember when U.S. soybean farmers had to get multi-billion-dollar bailouts because China stopped buying? That's not strategy, that's chaos management. And Ana Navarro's point about double standards is spot on. If a woman leader acted this erratically, they'd be called emotional or unstable. But when Donald Trump does it, suddenly it's 4D chess. The reality is there's no chess here. It's a blunt instrument approach that leaves US industries weaker and makes global partners think twice before trusting us again.
Let me play one thing to Tiffany's point. I mean, Donald Trump and Scott Jennings have not been on the same page about this. Jennings has been trying to paint this as a pretty rosy picture, saying, you know, the bond markets had nothing to do with it, and the way that the market responded had nothing to do with it. Trump said the opposite. Listen to this.
I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
How much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening with the bonds? Is China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today.
It's kind of a casualty of being in Trump's cabinet that he will contradict you just a few minutes after you say something. But it had everything to do with the bond market. According to all available reporting, they went to the president and said, Mr. President, all the lights are flashing red right now. We have to change course. And he did, perhaps.
Well, he did. And I think it's important for the president to adhere to the advice of his advisors. These are complicated matters. The market, for the most part, likes stability and continuity. We all understand that. We talked about this the other day. With that said, I think the end result needs to be, can we level set with many of our trading partners and decrease the trade deficits that ultimately exist? If we can do that, I think that's a win. As it pertains to corporate America, I think once we pass corporate tax cuts or renew the Trump tax cuts, I think we'll see a significant amount of that wealth return in the next couple of weeks or 2-3 months. I think corporate America will be perfectly fine, and then we'll move on. The focus does need to be on China. I mean, Scott's right. They steal our IP and sell it back to us. I don't know any country in the world who would give their ideas away for free and then buy the ideas back. We have to figure out a way to protect American businesses and entrepreneurs, and we haven't figured that out in the past couple of years now. So I think there's some benefit to the American people and businesses by focusing the attention on China.
What Shermichael's missing here is that you can't just hand wave away bond market panic like it's a little blip. When the bond market gets shaky, it sends ripples through literally every corner of the economy. Mortgage rates, credit cards, car loans, you name it. That's why experts were sounding alarms when Trump brushed it off as beautiful. The reality is even a small spike in yields can cost taxpayers billions more in interest payments on the national debt. And about those tax cuts Michael mentioned, let's not forget the data. The 2017 Trump tax cuts added nearly $2 trillion to the deficit over a decade, according to the CBO, and the promised surge of corporate reinvestment never really materialized. Companies mostly used that windfall on stock buybacks to juice shareholder profits, not to create jobs or raise wages. So the idea that renewing them is going to magically stabilize the economy just doesn't hold up. Finally, on China, yes, they're a challenge, but tariffs and chaotic trade policies actually hurt American farmers and manufacturers more than they hurt Beijing. Exports plunged during the trade war, and taxpayers had to foot the bill for farm bailouts. So when Abby Phillip points out the instability Trump injects into the system, she's not exaggerating. That's not strategic toughness, it's reckless, and working Americans are the ones who end up paying for it.
Agrees with that. The problem is China's not playing ball. They're just ratcheting up the escalation.
But they're going to have to, though, Abby. We are their number one trading partner. Are they number one trading partner?
No. There's no have to in this.
Right.
Because let's start looking at trade flows. I wish I had a map or a diagram. You're going to start seeing south-south trade. You're going to see trade avoiding the United States.
Yeah,
let's remember.
Richard, can I just have you explain very briefly what south-south trade means for people who are, you said it a few times.
Well, it's basically anything, doesn't go through the northern hemisphere. It's southern hemispheric countries trading with each other, avoiding northern hemispheric, and that would include the EU with its regulations, and the United States. We're seeing huge amounts of Africa to Central and Latin America, Australasia, Asian, ASEAN trade. Can I just also have a reality check here? The sword of Damocles, if you will, has been lifted again and is now hanging over on the big stuff. But we still have steel and aluminium, or aluminum, as you insist on saying, steel and aluminium tariffs.
We're in America, Richard Quest.
We still have auto tariffs, 25%. We've still got 125% on China. And we have tripled, or he has tripled, the average tariff overall to 10%, which is livable. I'll give you that, Scott. It's livable, 10%, but it's still a tripling of where it was just a couple of weeks ago.
But Richard, how do you account for the fact that China has seen a significant decrease in their economic growth throughout fiscal year 2024 compared to 2023, and how that has to factor into the considerations of Xi Jinping moving forward and trying to bridge some type of a trade deal with the United States?
If Xi Jinping was standing for Beijing North in an election, it would, but it doesn't.
Different kind of system. Effectively no politics, Cher Michael. I think this is an important point. China, Xi Jinping does not have to deal with politics in the way that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have to deal with it. That is a fundamental difference in our systems. So they can withstand a lot of pain.
What Cher Michael's missing here is that China doesn't have to bend to US pressure just because we're a big trading partner. That logic worked maybe 20 years ago, but the world economy has shifted. Richard Quest is right to point out the rise of South-South trade, and it's not theoretical. In 2023, China did more trade with the global South than the US and EU combined. They've built long-term supply chains with Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia that let them cushion the blow of US tariffs. And about China's slowing economic growth, yes, it's down, but it's still around 5%, which is more than double the US growth rate. That's not collapse, that's recalibration. Beijing has also been stockpiling foreign reserves, ramping up domestic production of critical tech like semiconductors and expanding its Belt and Road Partnership. In other words, they can take the hit and still play the long game. Meanwhile, US tariffs don't just hurt China, they raise costs here at home. American importers and consumers foot the bill. A 2019 Fed study found that Trump's tariffs were essentially a tax on US businesses, with 100% of the cost passed down to Americans. So while China diversifies, we end up with higher prices at Walmart and Costco. That's why Richard's argument lands. This isn't a one-way street where China caves, it's a reshaping of global trade. And if the US keeps treating tariffs as the only tool, we risk isolating ourselves while Beijing quietly builds new allies. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.